Is the charity case here yet? A woman in a stunning red dress whispered to her husband, looking down from their grand staircase. I can't wait to see the look on her face when she sees our son in our home. The millionaire in the blue suit chuckled. Darling, be nice. We're just letting her see how well he's being raised. It's Christmas, after all. They both shared an arrogant laugh, expecting a single defeated woman to walk through the door, ready to be dismissed. What they didn't know was she wasn't coming alone. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. I don't care what it costs. Make it happen, Richard Wilson said into his phone, looking out at the Boston skyline from his corner office. We need to close this deal before Christmas. Richard hung up and smiled. Another billion-dollar deal was about to make him even richer. At 45 years old, he had everything money could buy. A technology company worth billions, a colonial mansion in Beacon Hill, and a perfect family image to show the world. The winter sun reflected off the tall glass buildings of downtown Boston as his assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Wilson, your wife is on line 1. She wants to discuss the Christmas party. Richard sighed and picked up the phone. Olivia, I'm in the middle of something important. This is important too, Richard. Olivia's voice was sharp. The Wilson Christmas Gala is in 3 weeks, and I need to know if you approve the budget I sent. Whatever you want is fine, he said, looking at his watch. Just make sure it's the best party Boston has seen this year. It will be, Olivia replied. Everyone who matters will be there. I'm planning something special this time. After hanging up, Richard turned back to the window. From 40 stories up, the people below looked tiny. That was how he liked to see the world, from above, where he controlled everything. 6 miles away, in the same city but a different world, Maya Campbell helped a group of 5-year-olds with their alphabet letters. As a kindergarten teacher, Maya loved her job, but it barely paid enough for her small apartment. Miss Campbell, look what I made, a little girl said, holding up a paper snowflake. Maya smiled. That's beautiful, Emma. You're so creative. The classroom reminded her of Leo, her 3-year-old son who lived with his father, the son she only got to see twice a month during supervised visits. The custody hearing 3 years ago had changed everything. You can't provide the quality of life that Mr. Wilson can, the judge had said. The child will have better opportunities with his father. Maya had only 1 lawyer. Richard had 5, plus witnesses who talked about his wealth and her lack of it. Money had won that day, not love. Back in Beacon Hill, Richard's new wife, Olivia Harrington Wilson, was planning the Christmas gala in their dining room. At 32, Olivia was beautiful, stylish, and completely focused on appearances. The ice sculptures need to be larger this year, she told her event planner. And I want white roses imported from Ecuador, nothing local. Olivia checked her reflection in her phone between instructions. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She had over 500,000 followers on social media who watched her curated life with envy. Mrs. Wilson, Leo is asking for you, said Eleanor, the 60-year-old nanny who took care of Leo daily. Olivia didn't look up from her notes. I'm busy, Eleanor. Can't you handle it? He wants to show you the Christmas drawing he made. Put it on the fridge or whatever. Olivia waved her hand dismissively. I need to finish these plans. Eleanor nodded and left quietly. Though she had only worked for the family for 2 years, she had become Leo's main source of comfort and stability. She found the little boy waiting in the hallway, a colorful drawing in his small hands. Did she like it? Leo asked, his blue eyes hopeful. She's very busy right now, sweetie, Eleanor said gently, but I love your drawing. Is that a Christmas tree? Leo nodded. It's for Mommy when she visits. Will she come for Christmas? Eleanor hesitated. I don't know, little one. But let's put your beautiful drawing in a safe place for when you see her next. Later that evening, Richard came home late as usual. He walked quietly to Leo's room and peeked in. The boy was asleep, his sandy blonde hair messy on the pillow, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, the last gift from Maya before the divorce. Richard felt a familiar twinge of guilt, which he quickly pushed away. He had won custody fairly. It wasn't his fault that Maya couldn't provide the life Leo deserved. He found Olivia in their bedroom, scrolling through her phone. "The Christmas gala plans are finalized," she said without looking up. "It's going to be amazing." The mayor confirmed, along with 3 state senators and most of the tech industry executives. "Sounds great," Richard said, loosening his tie, "as long as Leo doesn't have to stay up too late." Olivia put her phone down with unusual enthusiasm. "Actually, I had an idea about the party. I think we should invite Maya." Richard froze. "Why would we do that?" "For Leo," Olivia said, her voice suddenly sweet. "Christmas is about family, isn't it? He should see his mother during the holidays." Richard studied his wife's face. In the 3 years they'd been married, Olivia had never once suggested including Maya in anything. "That's surprising coming from you," he said carefully. Olivia shrugged. "I've been thinking about what's best for Leo. And it would show everyone how generous and compassionate we are, don't you think?" The next morning, while Richard was at work, Olivia called Maya. Her voice dripped with fake kindness. "Maya, it's Olivia Wilson. I'm calling to invite you to our Christmas gala on the 24th of December. Leo would love to see you, and we thought it would be nice to include you in the holiday celebration." After hanging up, Olivia smiled at her assistant who was helping with the guest list. "Did she accept?" the assistant asked. "Of course she did. She's desperate to see Leo." Olivia laughed. "This will be perfect. Wait until she sees how pathetic she looks compared to everything we have." "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Olivia's eyes narrowed. "I'll show everyone what a pathetic excuse for a mother she really is. By the end of the night, Leo won't even want to know her anymore." In her small apartment across town, Maya held the fancy invitation with shaking hands. She knew Olivia must have a reason for inviting her, and it couldn't be good. But the chance to see Leo at Christmas was too important to pass up. She looked at the photo of her son on her refrigerator, the only visible photo. The others she kept hidden in a special box, along with a secret that would soon change everything. Maya picked up her phone and called her sister in Vermont. "They invited me to their Christmas party," she said quietly. "I think it's time to tell the truth." "Are you sure?" her sister asked. Maya looked toward her bedroom where soft sounds of play could be heard. "Yes," she whispered. "It's time for everyone to meet Noah and Eli. It's time for Leo to meet his brothers. Do you have a plan for how to survive when Richard finds out you've been raising his other 2 sons in secret?" "He wanted 1 heir, not triplets," Maya said, her voice growing stronger. "He's about to learn that some things are more important than money and power. Some things you can't buy or control." Through the partially open door, she could see 2 small boys with sandy blonde hair and bright blue eyes, identical to Leo in every way, playing quietly together. Maya closed her bedroom door gently and leaned against it. Through the wood, she could hear Noah and Eli playing with their toy cars. Her heart raced as she thought about her decision. The Christmas party was only 2 weeks away, and soon her secret would change everything. "Mommy?" Noah called out. "Can we have cookies?" Maya took a deep breath and opened the door, smiling at her 2 boys. They looked up at her with identical blue eyes, the same eyes that Leo had. "Just 1 cookie each," she said. "Dinner will be ready soon." As the twins happily munched on their cookies, Maya sat down at her small kitchen table and opened her worn notebook. Inside was her plan for the Christmas Eve party. She had saved 3 months of teaching salary to buy the boys matching outfits and a nice dress for herself. It wasn't much compared to what Olivia would wear, but it was the best she could do. "We're going to meet someone special soon," Maya told the boys. "Your brother Leo." "The boy in the pictures?" Eli asked, cookie crumbs on his chin. Maya nodded. "Yes, sweetie. He looks just like you 2 because you're brothers, triplets. You were born on the same day." Why doesn't he live with us? Noah asked. Maya's throat tightened. That's complicated. But soon you'll meet him and his father. Your father, too. Across town in Beacon Hill, Olivia was inspecting a delivery of imported white roses for the Christmas gala. She walked through the mansion's grand entryway where workers were hanging crystal decorations from the ceiling. These need to be higher, she instructed a worker on a ladder, and make sure the lights hit them perfectly. I want them to sparkle when guests enter. Eleanor walked by with a basket of laundry, watching Olivia direct the workers like a movie director. The nanny had never seen such extravagance, even in the 2 years she'd worked for the Wilsons. "Mrs. Wilson," called the event planner, a thin woman with a clipboard, "the caterer needs final approval on the menu." "Fine," Olivia sighed, "but tell them the caviar must be beluga, not that cheaper stuff they tried to serve last year." Eleanor continued to the laundry room, shaking her head. As she sorted Leo's small clothes, she thought about how the boy had been asking about his mother more frequently. That afternoon, Richard sat in a board meeting at Wilson Tech Innovations headquarters downtown. He checked his watch as the financial officer droned on about fourth-quarter projections. His mind wandered to the upcoming Christmas party and Maya's attendance. "Richard?" the financial officer called. "Your thoughts on these numbers?" Richard straightened in his chair. "They look solid. Let's move forward." After the meeting, his assistant handed him a stack of messages. "Your wife called 4 times about the Christmas party budget," she said. "She says it's urgent." Richard sighed and dialed Olivia's number. "Finally," Olivia answered, "I need another $20,000 for the party. The ice sculptor I want is charging more than expected, and I've hired a photographer from Vanity Fair to document everything." "20,000 more?" Richard asked. "The budget was already 6 figures, Olivia." "This is the most important social event of the season," she said sharply. "Everyone who matters in Boston will be there. And don't forget, your ex-wife will be attending too. Don't you want her to see exactly what she lost?" Richard paused. "Fine. I'll have the money transferred. But this is the last increase." Later that evening, Eleanor read Leo a bedtime story in his room. The 3-year-old boy clutched his stuffed rabbit as she read. "When is my mommy coming?" Leo asked when she finished the book. "Soon," Eleanor said gently. "For the Christmas party." "Are you excited?" Leo nodded eagerly. "I made her a song." "Wanna hear?" "I'd love to," Eleanor smiled. Leo sat up in bed and sang a simple tune about Christmas and Mommy. His small voice was filled with excitement. "That's beautiful," Eleanor said, tucking him back in. "Your mommy will love it." "Olivia is not my mommy," Leo said seriously. "My real mommy has pretty brown hair and smells like flowers." Eleanor nodded. "I know, sweetie. Now get some sleep." After Leo fell asleep, Eleanor walked downstairs and heard Olivia on the phone in the living room. She slowed her steps to listen. "It's going to be perfect, Jennifer," Olivia was saying. "I've invited all the important people in Boston. Even the mayor is coming. And when Maya shows up in whatever sad outfit she can afford, everyone will see what a mistake it would be to let her have more time with Leo." Eleanor frowned as she continued listening. "I've hired a photographer to capture everything," Olivia continued, "especially her face when she sees how Leo prefers me now. Poor thing probably can't even afford a decent dress." Eleanor stepped back quietly, troubled by what she had heard. She had always known Olivia didn't like Maya, but she hadn't realized the depth of her cruelty. She considered warning Maya somehow, but feared losing her job, and worse, being separated from Leo who needed her. The next morning, Richard found Leo's drawing on his desk, a picture of a woman with brown hair labeled Mommy, with hearts around it. He stared at it for a long moment before carefully placing it in his desk drawer when he heard Olivia approaching. "The custom tuxedo for Leo arrived," Olivia announced, walking into his home office. "It cost $4,000, but he'll be the most adorable child at the party." "$4,000 for an outfit he'll wear once?" Richard asked. Olivia rolled her eyes. "It makes a statement, Richard." Maya needs to see what she can't provide. Richard turned back to his computer. Whatever you think is best. 2 days later, Eleanor was helping Leo try on his tuxedo when Olivia entered the room with her assistant. "Perfect," Olivia declared. "He looks like a proper Wilson." "It's tight," Leo complained, pulling at the collar. "Beauty requires sacrifice," Olivia said dismissively. "You'll get used to it." After they left, Eleanor loosened the boy's collar. "Just a little while in this fancy outfit, then you can wear your comfortable clothes again." "Will Mommy like it?" Leo asked. "Your mommy will love seeing you no matter what you wear," Eleanor assured him. Across town, Maya stood in front of her small closet, examining her only nice dress, a simple emerald green one she'd worn to her college graduation years ago. Next to her, Noah and Eli were trying on the new outfits she'd purchased for the party. "You look so handsome," she told them, adjusting their little bow ties. "Will our daddy like us?" Eli asked quietly. Maya knelt down to look both boys in the eyes. "Your daddy doesn't know about you yet. He might be surprised or even upset at first, but once he sees how wonderful you are, he'll love you." "Like he loves Leo?" Noah asked. Maya nodded, though her heart tightened. "Yes, like Leo." That evening, Richard came home late and found Olivia reviewing the guest list in the dining room. "The governor can't come, but his wife will be here," she told him. "And I've seated Maya at the far end of the room, away from Leo's performance." "Performance?" Richard asked, loosening his tie. "He's going to sing a Christmas song for everyone," Olivia said. "I've hired a voice coach to work with him this week." Richard frowned. "He's 3 years old, Olivia. He doesn't need a voice coach." "Everything needs to be perfect," she insisted. "I've told everyone about my special surprise guest. They're all curious to meet the woman who couldn't keep her marriage or her child." Richard walked to the bar and poured himself a bourbon. "Just don't make a scene. This is supposed to be a Christmas celebration, not a public humiliation." "Of course not," Olivia smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "I'm simply being generous, inviting her for Leo's sake." Later that night, after Richard went to bed, Olivia called her friend Jennifer again. "Everything is arranged," she whispered, sitting in the darkness of the living room. "The photographer knows exactly what moments to capture. Maya won't know what hit her." As snow began falling over Boston the night before Christmas Eve, Maya knelt before Noah and Eli in their small bedroom. She helped them practice what to do at the party one last time. "Remember, stay close to me until I say it's time," she instructed gently. "Tomorrow will change everything for us." "Will we live with Leo after?" Noah asked hopefully. Maya stroked his hair, the same sandy blonde as Leo's. "I don't know exactly what will happen, but we'll all be together somehow. I promise." She tucked the boys into bed and kissed their foreheads. Tomorrow, the secret she had kept for 3 years would finally be revealed. Richard Wilson was about to discover that his perfect life was built on incomplete information. He didn't have 1 son, but 3. Christmas Eve morning arrived with soft snow falling over Boston. Maya woke up early and stood by the window of her small apartment, watching white flakes cover the city streets. Today was the day. There was no turning back now. "Mommy, it's snowing!" Noah and Eli shouted together as they ran into her bedroom. Both boys pressed their faces against the cold window glass, their breath making foggy circles. "Yes, it is," Maya smiled. "It's going to be a beautiful Christmas Eve." "Will there be snow at Daddy's house too?" Eli asked. "Yes, sweetheart. His house is in Boston too, just in a different neighborhood." Across town in Beacon Hill, the Wilson mansion was buzzing with activity. Staff members hung the final decorations while caterers set up stations of food in the dining room. In the center of the grand foyer stood a 20-foot Christmas tree covered in expensive ornaments that sparkled under the chandelier. Olivia walked through the rooms, inspecting every detail. She wore a silk robe, her hair in rollers as she prepared for her glam team to arrive. "The ice sculptures need to go by the main entrance," she instructed a worker, "and make sure the string quartet sets up in the corner of the living room." The butler approached her with a clipboard. "The florist has a question about the centerpieces, Mrs. Wilson." "Tell them white roses only. No fillers, no greenery," Olivia said sharply. "I was very clear about that." Upstairs, Leo sat on his bed watching the snow through his window. Eleanor helped him pick out socks for his tuxedo. "Is it time to get dressed yet?" Leo asked eagerly. "I want to look nice when Mommy comes." "Not yet, sweetie," Eleanor said. "The party doesn't start until 7 o'clock tonight." "How many minutes is that?" Eleanor smiled. "Many minutes. But first we'll have lunch, then a nap, then we'll get you dressed." Leo frowned. "I'm too excited for a nap." "Well, you need to rest so you'll have energy when your mother arrives." In his home office, Richard sat at his desk reviewing year-end business reports. He should have been at the office but had promised Olivia he would be home on Christmas Eve. The sound of workers hammering and moving furniture echoed through the house. His phone rang. It was his business partner, John Harrington, Olivia's father. "Merry Christmas, John," Richard answered. "Same to you, Richard. Looking forward to the party tonight. Olivia says it will be the event of the season." "Doesn't she always?" Richard replied, rubbing his forehead. "Is everything all right?" John asked. "You sound stressed." Richard hesitated. "Olivia invited Maya to the party tonight." There was a pause on the other end. "Your ex-wife?" "Why would she do that?" "She says it's for Leo's sake. But between us, I think she wants to show off." "Well, that's my daughter for you." John laughed. "Always needs to be the center of attention." After hanging up, Richard opened his desk drawer and looked at Leo's drawing again. The simple picture of Maya with hearts around it made him feel something he couldn't name. Guilt? Regret? He closed the drawer quickly as Olivia knocked and entered. "The photographer from Vanity Fair just arrived," she announced. "He wants to take some preparation shots before guests arrive." "Fine," Richard said. "I'll be down in a minute." Olivia looked at him critically. "You should start getting ready soon. Your tuxedo is pressed and waiting in our room." After she left, Richard stood and walked to the window. The snow was falling steadily now, covering their large yard in white. It would be a picture-perfect setting for the party, exactly as Olivia had planned. In her apartment, Maya helped Noah and Eli eat lunch. They sat at her small kitchen table, both boys swinging their legs as they ate peanut butter sandwiches. "After lunch, we'll take a rest," she told them. "Then we'll get all dressed up for the party." "Will there be other kids there?" Noah asked. "I don't know," Maya answered honestly. "But Leo will be there. And remember, he doesn't know about you yet. This will be a big surprise for him." "A Christmas surprise," Eli said excitedly. Maya nodded. "That's right. A very big Christmas surprise." As afternoon turned to evening, the Wilson mansion glowed with warmth against the snowy backdrop. Staff lit hundreds of candles throughout the house. The caterers arranged displays of gourmet food. Bartenders set up stations with top-shelf liquor and champagne. In her dressing room, Olivia sat as a makeup artist applied the finishing touches to her face. Her hair was perfectly styled, and diamonds sparkled at her neck and ears. "The red gown, please," she instructed her assistant, who carefully removed an expensive designer dress from its garment bag. "You look stunning, Mrs. Wilson," the assistant said as Olivia slipped into the gown. Olivia examined herself in the mirror and smiled. "Yes, I do." Maya won't know what hit her. In Leo's room, Eleanor helped the boy into his tiny tuxedo. He stood very still as she tied his bow tie. "You look very handsome," Eleanor told him. "Does it look expensive?" Leo asked innocently, repeating words he had heard Olivia use. Eleanor paused. "That's not what matters, Leo. What matters is that you're happy and comfortable." "I am happy," Leo said, jumping a little. "My mommy is coming tonight." Downstairs, Richard adjusted his cufflinks, the ones Maya had given him years ago. He had chosen them deliberately tonight, though he wasn't sure why. Perhaps as a small act of defiance against Olivia's orchestrated evening. "Sir, the first guests will be arriving soon," the butler informed him. "Thank you, James," Richard replied. "Is everything ready?" "Yes, sir. Mrs. Wilson has requested that you greet guests in the foyer." At 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang for the first time. Richard stood at the entrance with Olivia by his side, her arm looped through his. They looked like the perfect power couple, exactly the image Olivia had cultivated. "Mayor Johnson, welcome," Richard greeted as the butler opened the door. "Merry Christmas." "Richard, Olivia." The mayor nodded, handing his coat to a waiting staff member. "Quite a winter wonderland you've created here." More guests arrived, business associates, politicians, celebrities, all dressed in their finest attire. The string quartet played holiday classics as servers circulated with champagne and appetizers. Photographers moved through the crowd, capturing the extravagance of the evening. Leo stayed close to Eleanor, suddenly shy with so many adults around. He kept looking toward the door each time it opened. "Is she here yet?" he asked Eleanor repeatedly. "Not yet, sweetie," Eleanor would answer, squeezing his small hand. Across town, Maya helped Noah and Eli into their matching outfits, the best she could afford, though nowhere near as expensive as what Leo would be wearing. She smoothed their sandy blonde hair and straightened their little bow ties. "Remember what we practiced," she told them. "Stay close to me until I say it's time." "Yes, Mommy," they answered together. Maya looked at herself in the mirror one last time. Her emerald green dress was simple but elegant. She had managed to get her hair done at an inexpensive salon, and her makeup was minimal but flattering. She didn't look rich, but she looked dignified. And that would have to be enough. "Time to call our taxi," she told the boys. Back at the mansion, the party was in full swing by 8 o'clock. The rooms were filled with Boston's elite, all mingling and admiring the extravagant decorations. Olivia moved through the crowd like a queen, accepting compliments on her home and party. "Have you seen our special guest yet?" one of her friends asked. "Not yet," Olivia smiled, "but she should be here soon. I can't wait for you all to meet her." Richard stood with a group of business associates, discussing the tech industry's outlook for the coming year, but his eyes kept moving to the entrance, waiting. He felt uneasy about Maya's arrival and Olivia's obvious anticipation of it. Leo had grown tired and cranky as the evening progressed. He tugged on Eleanor's hand. "Where is my mommy?" he asked, his voice louder than before. "You said she would come." "She will, Leo," Eleanor assured him. "Sometimes grown-ups run late." Olivia overheard and came over, straightening Leo's bow tie. "Don't worry, Leo. Your mother will be here, though she's probably having trouble finding something decent to wear." Eleanor frowned at Olivia's comment but said nothing. Outside the mansion, a taxi pulled up to the gates. Maya paid the driver with carefully counted bills and helped Noah and Eli out of the car. The three stood looking up at the enormous house covered in lights and decorations. "Wow," Noah whispered. "Is this really where Daddy lives?" "Yes," Maya said, taking a deep breath. "This is where your father lives, and your brother Leo." She took their hands, one small boy on each side of her. The snow fell gently around them as they walked toward the front door. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. In just a few minutes, her secret would be revealed, and nothing would ever be the same again. "Ready?" she asked the twins. Both boys nodded, their blue eyes wide with excitement. Maya rang the doorbell and waited, holding tightly to her son's hands. The doorbell echoed through the mansion. James, the butler, moved swiftly to answer it, his face professionally neutral despite the tension that had been building all evening. Inside the grand living room, Olivia perked up at the sound. "Finally," she whispered to her friend Jennifer. She smoothed her red gown and positioned herself near the center of the room where everyone would see her reaction to Maya's arrival. Leo, who had been sulking in a corner with Eleanor, suddenly stood straight. "Is that her? Is that my mommy?" His voice carried across the room, causing several guests to turn. James opened the heavy front door to find Maya standing in the light snowfall, a small boy holding each hand. "Ms. Campbell," he said, eyes widening slightly at the sight of the twins. "Welcome to the Wilson residence." Maya nodded politely. "Thank you, James." The butler hesitated for just a moment before stepping aside. "Please come in. May I take your coats?" As Maya and the twins entered the foyer, James quietly spoke into the small microphone on his lapel. "Mrs. Wilson, Ms. Campbell has arrived with guests." Olivia's triumphant smile froze as she heard the last part. Guests? That wasn't part of the plan. She quickly composed herself and nodded to the photographer from Vanity Fair, who positioned himself for the perfect shot. The string quartet stopped playing as James appeared at the entrance to the main room. "Ms. Maya Campbell has arrived," he announced formally. All conversations paused. Glasses of champagne hovered mid-air as everyone turned toward the entrance. Olivia stepped forward, ready to play the gracious hostess to her husband's unfortunate ex. Then Maya stepped into the room, still holding the hands of two small boys who looked exactly like Leo. The crowd gasped collectively. Richard, who had been speaking with the mayor, turned at the sound. The bourbon glass he was holding slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The amber liquid splashed across his expensive shoes, but he didn't notice. "Maya," he whispered, his face draining of color. Across the room, Leo had been sitting on a small chair while Eleanor fixed his bow tie. He looked up at the commotion and saw Maya. His face lit up with joy. "Mommy!" he cried, jumping down and running toward her. Then Leo stopped abruptly as he noticed the two boys holding Maya's hands. His mouth opened in surprise. The boys stared back with identical expressions on identical faces. "You look like me," Leo said in wonder. Noah and Eli nodded simultaneously. "We're your brothers," Eli said simply. "Brothers?" Leo repeated, then broke into the biggest smile. "I have brothers!" He rushed forward and threw his arms around both boys. "My brothers! My brothers came." The Vanity Fair photographer, sensing a moment too perfect to miss, started snapping pictures rapidly. The flash illuminated the three identical boys embracing in the center of the room. Olivia stood frozen, her carefully orchestrated humiliation completely backfiring. Her face cycled through shock, confusion, and barely contained rage. Guests began whispering and pulling out their phones to capture the moment. "Triplets," someone whispered. "3 of them," another voice added. "Identical," a third guest confirmed unnecessarily. Maya took a deep breath and walked toward Richard, who hadn't moved since dropping his glass. Her head was held high despite the stares and whispers. "Hello, Richard," she said calmly. Richard struggled to find words. "Maya, what? How?" "You never asked if there were more children," Maya said, her voice steady but loud enough for those nearby to hear. "You only wanted the one you saw in the hospital that day. I wasn't going to let you separate them all, so I made a choice to protect 2 of them from becoming trophies in your collection." The words hung in the air. Several guests covered their mouths in shock. The mayor took a careful step away from Richard, as if not wanting to be associated with what was unfolding. Eleanor moved closer to the triplets, her protective instincts kicking in. She knelt beside them, smiling warmly at Noah and Eli. "Hello, boys. I'm Eleanor, Leo's nanny." "Hello," they replied together. Then Noah added, "Leo talks about you in his letters." Eleanor looked confused. "Letters?" "I write them," Maya explained. "I read them to Noah and Eli so they would know their brother even though they couldn't meet him." Leo was excitedly showing his brothers the Christmas tree. "Look how big it is! And there are presents under it." "Do you have a tree too?" "Yes, but it's little," Eli answered. "Mommy lets us make decorations for it." Olivia finally unfroze and marched toward Richard. "What is happening?" she hissed. Did you know about this?" Before Richard could answer, she turned to Maya. "How dare you crash our party like this? This is completely inappropriate." Maya met Olivia's glare calmly. "You invited me, remember? You didn't specify that I couldn't bring my children, Richard's children." "Richard," Olivia demanded, "say something." Richard finally seemed to snap out of his shock. "We should discuss this privately." He gestured toward his office. "Maya, please." Maya nodded. "Boys, stay with Leo and Eleanor for a few minutes. I need to talk to your father." The triplets nodded, already deep in conversation about Leo's toys and the Christmas decorations. Richard led Maya toward his office, aware that every eye in the room followed them. The party had effectively stopped. The string quartet awkwardly began playing again, but no one was listening. Olivia attempted to salvage the situation. "Everyone, please enjoy the food and drinks. Dinner will be served shortly." But the guests were too engrossed in the unfolding drama to pay attention. They gathered in small groups, whispering behind their hands and watching the triplets. "Those are definitely Richard's sons," a woman in a blue dress said to her husband. "Look at those eyes, exactly like his." How did he not know? Her husband wondered. Triplets aren't exactly easy to hide. "Apparently he never bothered to ask," the woman replied. "Typical Richard, only sees what he wants to see." In Richard's office, Maya sat across from his large desk. The room was dark except for a single lamp casting shadows on Richard's stunned face. "Explain," Richard said simply. Maya folded her hands in her lap. "When I was pregnant, the doctor told me we were having triplets. I was so excited, but when I told you, I said I wanted one heir, not a basketball team," Richard finished, remembering his cruel words. "Yes," Maya nodded. "You made it clear that one child was all you wanted. After they were born and you saw Leo first, you immediately bonded with him. You never even asked about the other two babies in the nursery. You assumed they belonged to other patients." Richard ran his hands through his hair. "So what did you do?" "My sister Jane came to the hospital. We registered Noah and Eli as her children. On paper, they're her sons with her ex-husband. When you decided to divorce me and take Leo, I moved Noah and Eli in with me. Jane helps when she can." Richard stood and walked to the window. Outside, snow continued to fall on the elaborate Christmas decorations that lined the property. "3 years," he said quietly. "You've kept this secret for 3 years." Maya's voice hardened slightly. "You gave me no choice, Richard. Your lawyers destroyed me in court. You painted me as an unfit mother who couldn't provide for one child. Would you have let me keep any of them if you'd known about all 3? Richard didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Why reveal this now?" he finally asked. "Because they need to know each other. They're brothers, Richard. Triplets have a special bond. Leo has been asking about siblings in his letters to me, and Noah and Eli deserve to know their father and brother." Meanwhile, in the main room, the triplets had become the center of attention. Guests circled them at a distance, watching the identical boys interact as if they'd known each other forever. They spoke in similar voices, moved with the same gestures, and even laughed alike. Eleanor sat with them, her heart warming at their instant connection. She had always thought Leo seemed lonely sometimes, even with all his expensive toys. Now she understood why. Olivia paced near the dining room, her phone pressed to her ear. "Marcus, I need you here now. Yes, I know it's Christmas Eve. This is an emergency. My husband apparently has 2 more children I didn't know about." She glanced at the triplets with thinly veiled disgust. "I need to know my legal options immediately." As midnight approached, the party had transformed into something entirely different than what Olivia had planned. The formal dinner was forgotten as guests lingered, not wanting to miss any development in the Wilson family drama. The Vanity Fair photographer had filled 2 memory cards already. In his office, Richard made a decision. He stood up from his desk and looked directly at Maya. "I want to meet my sons properly. he said. All three of them. Maya nodded slowly as relief spread across her face. She had been preparing for this moment for 3 years, never knowing if it would end in more heartbreak or hope. "They've waited a long time to meet you," she said, rising from her chair. "Noah has been asking about you since he could talk." Richard followed Maya out of the office. The sound of children's laughter guided them back to the main room where the triplets were now the center of attention. Guests had formed a loose circle around the 3 identical boys, phones raised to record the unexpected Christmas miracle. The triplets sat cross-legged on the floor, completely oblivious to the staring adults. Leo was showing his brothers a small toy car from his pocket. "I have 10 more in my room," Leo told them proudly. "We can all play with them." "Do you have blue ones?" Noah asked. "Blue is my favorite color." "I have every color," Leo exclaimed. "And robots, too." Richard stopped at the edge of the crowd, suddenly uncertain. Maya gently touched his arm. "Boys," she called, "there's someone very important who wants to meet you properly." The triplets looked up simultaneously. Leo jumped to his feet first. "Daddy!" he called, running to Richard. "Look! These are my brothers. They look just like me." Noah and Eli stood more slowly, their small faces suddenly serious as they looked at the father they'd only seen in photographs. Richard knelt down to their level, his expensive suit touching the floor. "Hello?" he said softly. I'm your father." The twins glanced at Maya, who nodded encouragement. Eli stepped forward first, his small chin raised bravely. "I know," he said. "Mommy has your picture in our house. I'm Eli." "And I'm Noah," the other boy added, moving to stand beside his brother. "We're 3 years old." Richard's eyes filled with tears that surprised even him. "It's very nice to meet you both." I didn't know about you until tonight." "Mommy said you didn't," Noah replied simply, "but now you do." Leo, sensing the tension, grabbed his brother's hands. "Can they see my room, Daddy? Please, I want to show them my toys." Before Richard could answer, Eleanor stepped forward. "That's a wonderful idea, Leo. Why don't I take you boys upstairs for a little while?" Richard nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Eleanor. That would be helpful." As Eleanor led the triplets toward the staircase, Leo chattered excitedly about his toy collection. The 3 boys held hands, forming a chain that refused to break. Guests parted to let them through, phones still recording. The Vanity Fair photographer positioned himself at the foot of the grand staircase, capturing images of the 3 identical boys ascending with Eleanor. It was a powerful scene. 3 perfect copies of the same child, connected physically and somehow deeper. Once the children were out of sight, the adults began speaking more freely. The whispers grew louder, and Richard became aware of the spectacle his Christmas gala had become. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his business voice taking over automatically. "Thank you for your understanding. This has been an unexpected evening for my family. Please enjoy the rest of the party." The string quartet, which had fallen silent again, quickly resumed playing. Servers circulated with fresh champagne, but the guests remained fixated on the drama. This would be the talk of Boston for months. Olivia finally emerged from wherever she had been hiding. Her perfectly made-up face was now hard with anger as she approached Richard and Maya. "We need to talk," she hissed at Richard. "Now!" "Maya is part of this conversation," Richard replied firmly. Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Fine." The small sitting room, away from prying eyes. The 3 adults moved to a smaller room off the main hall. Richard closed the door, muffling the party sounds. Olivia immediately rounded on Maya. "How dare you?" she said through clenched teeth. "You planned this to humiliate me." Maya shook her head. "This isn't about you, Olivia. It never was. This is about 3 little boys who deserve to know each other. You could have told Richard privately. Instead, you create this circus. Would you have allowed it any other way?" Maya asked calmly. Would you have let Richard meet Noah and Eli quietly, or would you have used your expensive lawyers to prevent it? Olivia didn't answer, which was answer enough. Richard sat heavily on a small couch. Stop, both of you. What's done is done. He looked at Olivia. Did you know about this? About the possibility of more children? Of course not, Olivia snapped. Do you think I would have married you if I knew you had not one but 3 children with her? Maya's eyes softened slightly. She didn't know Richard. No one knew except my sister and me. And now everyone knows, Olivia said bitterly. Every important person in Boston just witnessed the great Richard Wilson being made a fool of. I wasn't trying to make him look foolish, Maya insisted. I was trying to reunite brothers who should never have been separated. Upstairs, Eleanor sat on Leo's bed watching the triplets explore the room. The boys moved in similar ways, often reaching for the same toy simultaneously. They had been apart their whole lives, yet they seemed to read each other's thoughts. Look at my train, Leo said, pulling a large electric train set from under his bed. Wow, Noah and Eli breathed together. We have a small wooden train, Noah told Leo. But not like this. Eleanor watched them with a mixture of joy and sadness. These children belonged together, anyone could see that. Yet the adult world had kept them apart through pride, anger, and hurt. Eleanor, Eli asked suddenly, will we stay together now? All of us? Eleanor's heart tightened. I don't know, sweetie. That's for your parents to decide. But we want to stay together, Leo insisted. They're my brothers. Downstairs, the argument continued in the sitting room. What happens now? Richard asked Maya. You've revealed this secret. What do you want? I want what's best for the children, Maya said. They should be together. They're triplets, Richard. They have a connection most people can't understand. She wants money, Olivia interrupted. That's what this is about. She's using these children to get to your wallet. Maya's face flushed with anger for the first time that evening. If I wanted Richard's money, I would have told him about all 3 children during the divorce. The judge would have ordered triple the child support. Richard looked at Maya with new understanding. You kept Noah and Eli secret to protect them from me, not to get money. Yes, Maya said simply. I saw how you viewed Leo. Like an acquisition, a trophy to complete your perfect image. I couldn't bear for all 3 to be treated that way. Olivia paced the small room, her red dress swishing angrily. This changes everything, Richard. Everything. I did not sign up to be stepmother to triplets. You're hardly a stepmother to Leo, Maya said quietly. Eleanor raises him. You just dress him up for photos. How dare you? Enough, Richard interrupted. He stood and faced Olivia directly. This isn't about you or me or Maya. It's about 3 little boys who deserve better than what we've given them. Olivia laughed bitterly. Listen to yourself. Suddenly you're father of the year? You barely spend time with 1 child? Now you want 3? Richard didn't respond immediately. Her words, though cruel, contained truth he couldn't deny. The door opened and Eleanor appeared looking apologetic. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the boys are asking for both their parents. They're getting tired, and they're worried about being separated again. Richard nodded. Thank you, Eleanor. We'll be right up. After Eleanor left, Richard turned to Maya. What do you propose for tonight? The boys clearly don't want to be separated. They can stay here for the night, Maya suggested. All 3 together. I can stay too, if there's room. There's plenty of room, Richard said. The guest suite on the 3rd floor is ready. Absolutely not, Olivia declared. I will not have her spending the night in our home. Richard took a deep breath. Olivia, it's Christmas Eve. The boys are tired. This is the most practical solution. Practical? Olivia's voice rose. Do you hear yourself? Nothing about this situation is practical. She grabbed her clutch purse from the table. Fine. They can all stay. But I won't. What do you mean? Richard asked. I mean, I'm going to the 4 Seasons for the night. I need to think. Away from this. She gestured vaguely around her. My father was right about you, Richard. You're all business, no heart. With that, Olivia swept from the room, leaving Richard and Maya alone. I'm sorry, Maya said after a moment. This isn't how I wanted things to go. Richard ran a hand through his hair. No, I imagine not. He looked at her directly. But you're right about one thing. The boys deserve to be together. Let's go tell them they can all stay tonight. As they walked toward the stairs, they could hear the remaining party guests still gossiping. The story of the Wilson triplets was already spreading through Boston's elite circles, undoubtedly reaching social media and perhaps even the local news. The Christmas gala that Olivia had planned as Maya's humiliation had transformed into something entirely different. As Richard and Maya climbed the stairs to their sons, both knew that by morning nothing would be the same. Richard and Maya reached the top of the grand staircase just as the Christmas tree lights in the foyer below flickered momentarily. The mansion was still full of party guests, but the main drama had moved upstairs where three identical boys were discovering each other for the first time. They found the triplets in Leo's large bedroom, all three sitting on the blue carpet surrounded by toy cars. Eleanor sat in a nearby chair, watching with a gentle smile. "Mommy!" Noah called when he saw Maya. "Leo has so many toys." "I see that," Maya said, kneeling down beside them despite her dress. "Are you boys having fun?" The three nodded in unison, a sight that made Richard pause in the doorway. The similarity was striking. Three perfect copies of the same child, down to the way they tilted their heads when curious. "We have some good news," Richard said, entering the room fully. "Your mom and I have talked, and you all can stay together tonight, here at the house." The triplets' faces lit up with identical smiles. "All of us?" Leo asked excitedly. "My brothers too?" "Yes," Richard confirmed. "There's plenty of room." "And Mommy too?" Eli asked, looking at Maya. "Yes, I'll stay too," Maya assured him. "I won't leave you." Eleanor stood from her chair. "I'll prepare the guest suite for Ms. Campbell and the blue bedroom next to Leo's for the twins." "No!" Leo protested immediately. "They have to sleep in my room. We want to be together." Noah and Eli nodded vigorously in agreement. "Please, Daddy," Leo pleaded. "I have a big bed. We can all fit." Richard looked at Maya, who shrugged slightly. "I suppose that would be fine for tonight." "Thank you," the triplets chorused. Eleanor smiled. "I'll bring extra pillows then." "And perhaps I should check on the remaining guests? I believe many are still downstairs." "Yes, thank you, Eleanor," Richard said gratefully. "Please inform James to start suggesting people might want to head home. It's getting late." After Eleanor left, Richard sat on the edge of Leo's bed. "Boys, would you like to come to my office for a little while? We adults need to talk more, and you can bring some toys down with you." The triplets agreed readily, each grabbing a few toy cars before following Richard and Maya downstairs. The main party area was still buzzing with people, many of whom stared openly as the family passed through. Richard led them to his wood-paneled office and closed the heavy door, muffling the party sounds. The triplets immediately sat on the plush carpet, resuming their game as if they'd been playing together their entire lives. Richard watched them for a moment before turning to Maya. "I need to understand everything," he said quietly, gesturing for her to sit in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. He didn't take his usual position behind it, instead sitting in the other chair beside her. Maya pulled out her smartphone from her small purse. "I should start at the beginning," she said. "When I found out I was pregnant with triplets, I was so excited. I imagined 3 cribs in the nursery, 3 little ones growing up together. But I ruined that vision," Richard said, remembering his reaction. "You were very clear," Maya continued, her voice steady. "You said, 1 heir is enough, I don't want a basketball team." You talked about how difficult multiples would be for your image and our lifestyle. On the floor, the triplets were lining up cars by color, seemingly oblivious to the adult conversation. "After they were born," Maya continued, You came to the hospital and saw Leo first. He was in the front bassinet. You immediately bonded with him, never even asking about the other 2 babies nearby. I thought they belonged to other patients, Richard said weakly. It never occurred to me. My sister Jane came to the hospital that day too. We had already made a plan just in case. Maya swiped through her phone and showed Richard a photo. This is from the day they were born. All 3 together, just once before we separated them. Richard stared at the image. 3 tiny babies with identical features wrapped in hospital blankets. His sons, all 3 of them. How did you do it legally? Richard asked. The birth certificates? Jane and her ex-husband are listed as Noah and Eli's parents. We filed the paperwork that way from the beginning, Maya explained. When you decided to divorce me and fight for custody, I knew I had made the right decision. But you've been raising them, not your sister. Maya nodded. Jane helped in the beginning, but they've lived with me since the divorce. I work 2 jobs to support them, teaching kindergarten during the day and online tutoring at night after they're asleep. She continued swiping through photos on her phone. The twins learning to walk, their first birthday party, playing in a small plastic pool, first day of preschool. They've had a good life, Richard. Not luxurious like Leo's, but happy and full of love. Richard's throat tightened as he realized all he had missed. And Leo? How have you managed to see him with the custody restrictions? The supervised visits twice a month. I make every minute count, Maya said. And I write him letters that Eleanor reads to him. She's been very kind. She never knew about the twins? No one knew except Jane, Maya confirmed. Outside the office door, they could hear the party gradually winding down. Occasionally, the doorknob would turn slightly, but Eleanor was keeping her promise to prevent interruptions. When did you decide to tell me? Richard asked. When Leo started asking for siblings in his letters to me, and when Noah and Eli began asking more questions about their brother and father. Maya looked directly at Richard. They're reaching an age where they understand family better. I couldn't keep them separated anymore. On the carpet, Leo was showing his brothers how his toy car could flip over. I can do a backflip too, Noah told him proudly. Mommy taught me. Me too, Leo said. My teacher at gymnastics showed me. Richard watched their easy interaction with amazement. They act like they've known each other forever. They're triplets, Maya said simply. There's a connection there that's special. The office phone rang suddenly, startling everyone. Richard picked it up reluctantly. Yes? He listened for a moment. I understand. Tell her I'll call her in the morning. He hung up and sighed. Olivia has checked into the Four Seasons. Her lawyer will be contacting me tomorrow. I'm sorry about your marriage, Maya said, surprising herself with the sincerity of the statement. Richard shook his head. Don't be. This was coming anyway. Olivia and I. He glanced at the triplets and lowered his voice. We don't have what you'd call a love match. Still, this isn't how anyone imagined Christmas Eve would go. Richard looked at the 3 boys playing together and felt something shift inside him. No, it isn't. But seeing them together, Maya, I can't imagine separating them again. That's why I'm here, Maya said, pulling a folder from her purse. I brought these. It's a proposal for shared custody of all 3 boys. They would stay together, moving between our homes as a unit. Richard took the papers and looked through them. You prepared this in advance? Maya nodded. I hoped you would see what I see, that they need each other. The triplets had tired of their cars and were now examining the model ships in Richard's display case, carefully touching the small vessels with gentle fingers. Daddy, did you build these? Leo asked. Richard shook his head. No, I bought them. But maybe we could build one together sometime. All of us? Eli asked hopefully. Yes, Richard said, surprising himself with how right it felt. All of us. Maya watched the interaction with cautious hope. She had imagined many scenarios for this night, most of them ending with lawyers and threats. She hadn't dared hope for Richard's understanding. "It won't be simple," Richard said, turning back to Maya. "Olivia will fight this. My company's stock will probably drop when this news breaks. People will talk." "I know," Maya acknowledged. "But the alternative is 3 brothers growing up apart, never knowing each other. Is your image worth that price?" Richard looked at his sons again, all 3 of them, and knew the answer. "No," he said quietly. "It's not." The clock on the wall showed it was almost midnight. Christmas Day was minutes away, and Richard Wilson's life had completely changed. The perfect image he had cultivated for years had shattered, but as he watched his 3 sons laughing together, he wondered if perhaps he was seeing something real for the first time. The clock struck midnight, officially making it Christmas Day. The last few guests had finally left the mansion, ushered out by Eleanor and James. The catering staff worked quietly to clean up the abandoned party, while Richard remained in his office, staring at Maya's custody proposal. "The boys should sleep now," Maya said gently. "It's been an overwhelming day for everyone." Richard nodded in agreement. The triplets had grown quieter over the last hour, their excitement giving way to yawns and drooping eyelids. Leo was already leaning against Eli, his eyes half closed. "Eleanor has prepared everything upstairs," Richard said, standing. "I'll show you the way." Maya gathered the sleepy boys and they all headed upstairs to Leo's room. The bedroom, with its expensive furniture and carefully curated toys, looked like a showroom from a luxury catalog. Eleanor had turned down the covers on Leo's large bed and placed extra pillows and blankets for the twins. "Pajamas for Noah and Eli are on the chair," Eleanor said kindly. "I found some of Leo's that should fit perfectly." "Thank you, Eleanor," Maya replied with genuine gratitude. After the boys changed and brushed their teeth, they climbed into bed together. Despite never having shared a bed before, they instantly arranged themselves as if they'd done it their whole lives, Leo in the middle with Noah and Eli on either side. "Good night, my loves," Maya said, kissing each boy on the forehead. "Will you be here when we wake up?" Noah asked sleepily. "Yes, I'll be right down the hall," Maya assured him. "Daddy too?" Leo asked, looking at Richard, who stood awkwardly in the doorway. Richard stepped forward. "Yes, I'll be here too." The triplets smiled in unison before their eyes fluttered closed. Within minutes, they were asleep, their breathing synchronized in a way that seemed almost magical. Maya and Richard tiptoed out of the room, leaving the door slightly ajar. Eleanor waited in the hallway. "The guest suite is ready for you, Ms. Campbell," she said to Maya. "I've left some toiletries and a robe since you didn't bring overnight things." "Thank you for everything, Eleanor," Richard said. "You should get some rest too. It's been a long night." After Eleanor left, Richard turned to Maya. "We should talk more, but it's late. Get some sleep if you can. We have a lot to figure out in the morning." Maya nodded and headed to the guest suite. Richard watched her go, then turned toward the master bedroom he shared with Olivia. He paused at the door, hand on the knob, before deciding against entering. Instead, he returned to his office downstairs. The house grew quiet as Christmas morning crept closer. Richard sat at his desk, the only light coming from his computer screen as he typed email after email to his legal team. Around 3 o'clock, his phone rang. It was Olivia. "I hope you've come to your senses," she said instead of a greeting. "Olivia, it's the middle of the night," Richard sighed. "What do you want?" "I want to know what you're planning to do about this situation," she demanded. "Those children Maya kept hidden. Are you going to fight for custody?" Richard took a deep breath. "I'm not going to separate them, Olivia. They belong together." "So you're just going to let her win? After she lied to you for years?" "This isn't about winning or losing," Richard replied. "It's about 3 little boys who need each other." Olivia's laugh was bitter. "Listen to yourself. When did you become so sentimental? This woman hid your children from you, and now you're just going to roll over? What would you have me do? Fight for custody of all three and separate them from their mother? Force them into our lives when you clearly don't even want one child, let alone three." The line went silent for a moment. "I see," Olivia finally said, her voice cold. "You've made your choice. So have I. I'll have my lawyer contact you tomorrow. This marriage is over, Richard." "I know," he said quietly. "I think it has been for a while." After hanging up, Richard returned to his emails. By morning light, he had made his decision. He would not contest Maya's custody proposal. He would support all three boys equally, and they would remain together. As dawn broke over Boston, fresh snow covered the remains of last night's party decorations in the yard. Eleanor arrived early, letting herself in with her key. She found Richard asleep at his desk, his computer still on. She gently placed a cup of coffee near his hand. Richard stirred at the smell. "Eleanor? What time is it?" "7:30, she answered. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Wilson." Richard sat up, rubbing his neck. "Merry Christmas. Are the boys awake yet?" "Not yet. I checked on them a moment ago, all three still fast asleep, holding hands." Richard's face softened. They found each other so easily, like they were never apart. Eleanor nodded. "Children have that ability. They love purely." She hesitated before adding, "May I speak freely, sir?" "Of course." "Leo has been asking about siblings for months. He's been lonely in this big house, even with all his toys. When I saw him with his brothers last night," Eleanor smiled, "I've never seen him so happy." Richard's eyes grew damp. "Thank you for telling me that, Eleanor. And thank you for taking such good care of him." "What happens now?" she asked gently. "Now we try to do what's best for the boys," Richard said, standing up. "All three of them." Upstairs, the triplets were beginning to stir. Leo woke first, momentarily confused to find two other boys in his bed. Then he remembered and broke into a wide smile. "Noah! Eli! Wake up! It's Christmas!" he whispered excitedly, poking his brothers. The twins opened their eyes, blinking in the unfamiliar room. "Merry Christmas," Noah said with a yawn. "Santa came to your house too?" Eli asked, sitting up. "Of course," Leo exclaimed. "There's a big tree downstairs with lots of presents. Let's go see." The three boys scrambled out of bed and ran to the door, nearly colliding with Maya, who was just coming to check on them. "Mommy, it's Christmas!" they shouted together. Maya laughed, kneeling to hug them all. "Merry Christmas, my loves. I see you're ready for presents." "Yes, come on!" Leo tugged at her hand, leading the way downstairs. In the main living room, the enormous Christmas tree still stood with piles of elaborately wrapped gifts beneath it. Richard was already there, having just placed 3 additional packages among the others. "Daddy!" Leo ran to him, his brothers following. "Can we open presents now?" "Soon," Richard promised. "First, let's have some breakfast. Eleanor is making pancakes." During breakfast in the large dining room, Richard noticed how the triplets automatically sat together, sharing food and finishing each other's sentences. Maya sat across from him, looking tired but content. "I've been thinking about your proposal," Richard said quietly while the boys chattered among themselves. "I agree that they should stay together. I don't want to separate them again." Maya's eyes widened slightly. "You're not going to contest it?" Richard shook his head. "No, you were right. Some things are more important than pride or image." "And Olivia? She's filing for divorce," Richard said matter-of-factly. "She made her position clear last night. It was the boys or her. Not much of a choice, really." After breakfast, they all gathered around the Christmas tree. The triplets sat in a row, vibrating with excitement as presents were distributed. Leo received the most gifts, elaborate toys and gadgets that had been carefully selected by Olivia's personal shopper weeks before. Watching Noah and Eli's eyes widen at the sheer number of Leo's presents, Richard felt a pang of guilt. He handed each twin one of the packages he had added that morning. "These are for you, from me," he said somewhat awkwardly. "I'm sorry I don't have more. I didn't know about you until last night." The twins carefully unwrapped their gifts. Identical toy cars that Richard had found in his office, still in their packages. They had been intended as business gifts for clients. "Thank you, Daddy," thus they said together, genuinely thrilled with the simple presents. Maya watched the scene with mixed emotions. The stark difference between Richard's mansion and her small apartment had never been more evident. Leo had more toys than he could play with, while Noah and Eli treasured their few possessions. As the morning progressed, Richard made a decision. "Maya, would you and the boys like to come to your apartment to get some clothes and maybe some of their favorite toys? They might feel more comfortable with familiar things." Maya nodded gratefully. "That would be nice. Thank you." They drove to Maya's apartment in Richard's luxury SUV. The vehicle seemed enormously out of place in the modest neighborhood where Maya lived. Children playing in the snow stopped to stare at the expensive car. Richard followed Maya and the triplets up 3 flights of stairs to her small apartment. The contrast between his mansion and her home hit him hard. The entire apartment could fit inside his living room, yet despite its size and obvious age, it was clean, warm, and filled with photographs and children's artwork. The twins eagerly showed Leo their bedroom, which they shared. Their few toys were neatly arranged on a small shelf. "This is my bed," Noah told Leo proudly, pointing to a twin bed with a blue blanket. "And this is mine," Eli added, indicating the identical bed with a green blanket. "You each have your own bed?" Leo asked, surprised. "At Daddy's house, I have a big bed all to myself." Richard stood in the doorway of the boys' room listening to their conversation. He turned to Maya, who was gathering clothes for the twins. "How do you manage?" he asked quietly. "On a teacher's salary?" "Carefully," Maya answered simply. "We don't need much to be happy, Richard." Later, as they prepared to leave, Richard noticed a small Christmas tree in the corner of the living room. It was decorated with handmade ornaments, paper stars, painted pine cones, and strings of popcorn. A few modestly wrapped presents sat beneath it. "Should we take those presents too?" he asked Maya. She smiled. "Yes, those are from Santa. He finds children wherever they are." As Richard carried the boys' backpacks and Maya's overnight bag down to his car, he felt something shift inside him. The carefully constructed world he had built, the mansion, the company, the perfect image, suddenly seemed hollow compared to what Maya had created in her tiny apartment. A real home. The drive back to Beacon Hill was quiet. Richard glanced in the rearview mirror at the triplets, all buckled in a row in the back seat. They were identical in appearance, but he was beginning to notice subtle differences in their personalities. Leo was more outgoing, Noah more thoughtful, and Eli seemed to be the peacemaker between his brothers. Maya sat beside him in the passenger seat, looking out the window at the Christmas decorations along the streets of Boston. The city looked peaceful under a fresh blanket of snow. "I need to call my sister," Maya said suddenly. "Jane has been texting me all morning. She's worried about the boys." Richard nodded. "Of course. Use my phone if you need it." The days after Christmas passed in a blur of activity. Richard converted his home office into a temporary bedroom for Noah and Eli, moving his work to a smaller room. Eleanor helped the boys settle in, her quiet efficiency making the transition smoother for everyone. On the morning of December 26th, Richard sat at the kitchen table making important calls while the triplets ate breakfast. Maya had gone home briefly to collect more of the twins' things and to meet with her sister. "Mr. Thompson, I'm calling to inform you I'll be stepping back from day-to-day operations at Wilson Tech," Richard said into his phone, watching the boys share a plate of pancakes. "Yes, effective immediately. Family matters require my attention." Eleanor raised her eyebrows but continued pouring orange juice without comment. "I understand the board will have concerns," Richard continued. "Schedule an emergency meeting for tomorrow. I'll explain everything then." After hanging up, Richard's phone immediately rang again. It was his lawyer. "Richard, have you seen the news?" the lawyer asked without greeting. "No, I've been busy with the boys." Your family situation is all over the Boston Globe. Tech mogul's Christmas surprise, hidden triplets revealed. There are photos, Richard, from your party. Richard sighed. The Vanity Fair photographer. This will affect the company stock. We need to get ahead of this. Schedule a press conference for tomorrow after the board meeting, Richard said. And Jeffrey? Make sure Olivia's divorce filing is handled quietly. I'll give her what she wants. Later that afternoon, Richard met with a real estate agent in the living room while the triplets played upstairs with Eleanor. The market for properties in this price range is limited, Mr. Wilson, the agent explained, but we can list the mansion discreetly. I'm not concerned about discreet anymore, Richard replied, just efficient. And I'll need your help finding a new place, preferably near Maple Street in Cambridge. The agent looked surprised. Cambridge? That's quite a change from Beacon Hill. I'm aware, Richard said firmly. My priorities have changed. Upstairs, the triplets were building a fort out of blankets and pillows from Leo's bed. Their laughter echoed down the hallway. Higher, Noah, Leo directed. The roof is falling. Eleanor watched from a chair nearby, smiling at their easy cooperation. In just a few days, they had formed a tight unit, often communicating without words. The doorbell rang and James the butler answered it. Moments later, he appeared at Richard's office door. Mrs. Wilson is here to collect her things, sir, he announced formally. Richard stood. Thank you, James. Please show her up to the master bedroom. Olivia swept past Richard without acknowledgement, her designer sunglasses firmly in place despite the cloudy day. A team of assistants followed her upstairs. Keep the boys in the fort, Richard instructed Eleanor quietly. I don't want them upset by this. For the next 2 hours, Olivia's team packed her extensive wardrobe, jewelry, and personal items. She directed them with cold efficiency, refusing to speak directly to Richard. As she prepared to leave, she finally removed her sunglasses. My lawyer will contact yours today, she said, her voice hard. I expect a generous settlement considering the public humiliation I've endured. Richard simply nodded. You'll be treated fairly, Olivia. Fair? She laughed bitterly. Was it fair to hide the existence of 2 more children from me? To make me look like a fool in front of everyone who matters in Boston? Maya didn't do this to hurt you, Richard said quietly. Or me. She was protecting her children. From you? Olivia asked sharply. What does that say about the man I married? She left without waiting for an answer, the click of her heels echoing on the marble floor. 3 days after Christmas, Maya arrived at the mansion with papers from her lawyer. I've reviewed your proposal, she told Richard as they sat in the living room. The triplets were in the garden with Eleanor, building snowmen. Through the window, they could see 3 small figures working together to roll a large snowball. And? Richard prompted. It's very generous, Maya admitted. More than fair. But I have some concerns about the practical aspects. Such as? The boys need stability. Moving between 2 homes could be confusing, especially at their age. Richard nodded. That's why I'm selling this house. I've found a property near your apartment, just 3 blocks away. The boys could walk between our homes when they're a bit older. Maya looked surprised. You're really moving to Cambridge? Yes, Richard confirmed. The mansion sold yesterday. I accepted the first offer. That was fast. Richard smiled slightly. Money talks. A tech entrepreneur from Silicon Valley wanted it immediately. Maya glanced out the window again, watching the triplets work together. What about your company? Won't moving affect your work? I've stepped back from my CEO role, Richard said simply. I'll remain on the board but not in day-to-day operations. Maya's eyes widened. Because of the boys? Because I've realized some things are more important than making money, Richard replied. I've missed 3 years with Noah and Eli. I barely know Leo despite living with him. I don't want to miss any more. The days continued to pass. As the news of the Wilson triplets spread, reporters camped outside the mansion gates. Richard gave one brief statement asking for privacy for his children, then refused further comments. Olivia, meanwhile, had checked into the presidential suite at the Four Seasons Hotel and was seen dining with her lawyer nightly. Gossip columns reported she was demanding half of Richard's fortune despite their prenuptial agreement. On the morning of New Year's Eve, Richard called Maya. "Would you and the boys like to come to the mansion tonight?" he asked. "One last time before we move out next week. Nothing fancy, just dinner, and maybe watch the fireworks over Boston Harbor from the roof deck." "That sounds nice," Maya agreed. "The boys have been asking when they'll see you again." That evening, Maya and the triplets arrived to find the mansion transformed yet again. But this time, it was half-packed in moving boxes. Staff had already begun preparing for Richard's move. "Daddy!" The triplets called in unison as Richard opened the door himself instead of James. Richard knelt down to hug all three boys at once. "I missed you guys. Did you have fun at Mommy's house?" "We showed Leo our school," Noah said proudly. "And our friend Michael from next door," Eli added. "He has a dog named Spot," Leo informed Richard seriously. "He licked my face." Richard laughed. "Sounds exciting. Come in, I made dinner." Maya raised her eyebrows in surprise. "You cooked?" "Well, attempted to," Richard admitted. Eleanor helped a lot. The kitchen, usually the domain of hired chefs, now contained a simple pasta dinner laid out on the island. It was clearly amateur compared to the gourmet meals usually served in the house, but prepared with obvious care. After dinner, Richard asked Maya to join him in his office while Eleanor took the boys upstairs to change into pajamas before the fireworks. "I wanted to show you something," Richard said, spreading papers on his desk. "First, the house I bought. It's settled. We close next week." Maya looked at the photos of a comfortable but modest home just 3 blocks from her apartment. It was nothing like the mansion, but still far nicer than anything she could afford. "It's lovely," she said honestly. "And this," Richard continued, showing her more documents. "I've established a trust for all 3 boys' education. College, graduate school if they want it, all taken care of." Maya nodded, not entirely surprised. "Thank you. That's very generous." And finally this. Richard handed her papers for a newly established foundation. "It's called the Triplet Truth Foundation. It will support families fighting unfair custody battles due to financial disparity." Maya looked up from the papers, her eyes suddenly damp. "Richard." "It's the least I can do," he said quietly. "What happened between us? The way I used my money and power to take Leo from you, it wasn't right. I can't undo it, but I can try to prevent it from happening to other families." As midnight approached, they all gathered on the mansion's roof deck. The triplets, now in matching pajamas, bounced excitedly as they waited for the fireworks to begin over Boston Harbor. Eleanor handed out hot chocolate in mugs for everyone. 1 minute to midnight, she announced, checking her watch. The triplets began counting down with Eleanor's help. 10, 9, 8. Richard stood beside Maya, watching their son's excitement. 7, 6, 5. "Thank you," Richard said quietly to Maya. "For what?" she asked, not taking her eyes off the boys. 4, 3. "For giving me a second chance to be a father to all of them." 2, 1. "Happy New Year!" As fireworks exploded over Boston Harbor in a cascade of colors, Richard watched his 3 sons jumping up and down, their faces illuminated by the bright lights. He thought about the year ahead, moving to a new home, adjusting to shared custody, rebuilding his relationship with Noah and Eli, and strengthening his bond with Leo. For the first time in his adult life, his goals had nothing to do with business success or social standing. As the triplets turned to hug both their parents, Richard realized he had never felt more right about any decision in his life. The first week of January brought bitter cold to Boston, but inside Richard's new Cambridge home, warmth was beginning to spread. Moving day had arrived, with trucks transporting his carefully selected possessions from the Beacon Hill mansion to the comfortable 4-bedroom house just 3 blocks from Maya's apartment. "Where does this box go, Mr. Wilson?" asked a mover, holding a container labeled "Office." Richard pointed down the hallway. "Second door on the left, please." The house was nothing like the mansion. No marble floors, no grand staircase, no formal dining room that could seat 20 people. Instead, it had warm wooden floors, large windows that let in plenty of light, and a backyard where the triplets could play. Eleanor supervised the movers arranging Leo's bedroom, which now contained 3 beds instead of 1. "The blue comforter goes on that bed," she instructed. "That's Noah's favorite color." Outside, Maya pulled up in her car with the triplets. The boys raced up the front walk, eager to explore their father's new home. "Daddy!" they called in unison as they burst through the front door. Richard knelt down to receive their hugs. "What do you think of the new house, boys?" "It's smaller," Leo observed, looking around curiously. "But cozier," Noah added, already heading toward the stairs. "Can we see our room?" Eli asked excitedly. "Of course," Richard smiled. "Eleanor has it all set up for you." As the triplets thundered upstairs, Maya stepped inside carrying a houseplant. "A housewarming gift," she said, handing it to Richard. "It's hard to kill, I promise." Richard laughed. "Perfect for me, then." Later that afternoon, while the boys explored the backyard with Eleanor, Richard received a call from his real estate agent. "The sale of the Beacon Hill property is complete," the agent informed him. "All paperwork has been processed. Congratulations, Mr. Wilson." After hanging up, Richard looked out the kitchen window at his sons playing in the snow. The mansion was officially sold. Another chapter of his life closed. His phone rang again almost immediately. It was his lawyer. "Richard, Olivia's attorneys have filed additional demands," the lawyer said without preamble. "She's claiming emotional distress from the triplets' revelation and wants compensation beyond the prenuptial agreement." Richard sighed. "What exactly is she asking for?" "Half of your personal fortune, the vacation properties in Aspen and Martha's Vineyard, and an additional $5 million for, quote, public humiliation and damage to her social standing." "She'll leak ugly stories to the press if I don't agree," Richard guessed. "Most likely. Her lawyer has already hinted at it." Richard watched the triplets building a snow fort together. "Make her a generous offer to end this quickly. I don't want a prolonged battle that could affect the boys." 2 weeks later, on a frosty Monday morning, the triplets prepared for their first day at Little Scholars Preschool. All 3 would attend together, a decision Richard and Maya had made jointly. "Are you excited about your new school?" Maya asked as she helped Noah button his coat. "Will the other kids know we're brothers?" Eli wondered. "I think they'll figure it out," Richard smiled, adjusting Leo's hat. "You look very much alike." They arrived at the preschool together, an unusual sight that caused other parents to stare openly. The story of the Wilson triplets had been all over local news, and now Boston's most talked-about family was standing in the preschool drop-off line. "That's Richard Wilson," one mother whispered to another. "The tech billionaire who just found out he had triplets at Christmas." "I heard his ex-wife hid 2 of them from him," the second mother replied, "and his new wife left him over it." Richard pretended not to hear the whispers as he knelt to say goodbye to the boys. "Have a great day," he told them. "Mommy will pick you up this afternoon. And we'll see you tomorrow morning," Maya added. "Remember, you're staying at Daddy's house tonight." The triplets nodded and entered the classroom together, immediately drawing curious looks from the other children and teachers. As Richard and Maya walked back to the parking lot, she glanced at him. "That wasn't so bad. Just wait until the Boston Magazine interview comes out next week," Richard grimaced. "Then everyone will really be talking." Maya stopped walking. "You're doing an interview?" "Why?" "To control the narrative," Richard explained. "Better to tell our story directly than let rumors spread." Back at his new home, Richard set up his remote office in the smallest bedroom. He had once commanded a corner office with views of the entire Boston skyline. Now his window overlooked a neighbor's fence and a bird feeder. His assistant's face appeared on his computer screen for their daily video meeting. "The board is concerned about the company's image following the family revelations," she reported carefully. "The stock dropped 7 points yesterday." "Schedule a board meeting for tomorrow," Richard instructed. "I want to propose a new direction for the company: family-friendly policies, better parental leave, flexible working hours." "That's quite a change from our previous approach," his assistant noted. Richard nodded. "Yes, it is." That evening, after Maya dropped off the triplets, Richard cooked dinner with Eleanor's help while the boys set the table. This new routine, cooking together, eating at the kitchen table instead of the formal dining room, felt strange but increasingly right. "Daddy, when are you coming back to the office?" Leo asked during dinner. "You used to go every day." "I'm working differently now," Richard explained. "I can do most of my work from home so I can spend more time with you three." "Like Mommy does?" Noah asked. "Yes, like your mom." Richard smiled. "Speaking of Mommy, did you know she's teaching college students now too? In the evenings when you stay with me?" "Is she teaching them ABCS?" Eli asked seriously. Richard laughed. "No, she's teaching them how to be good teachers like she is." The next day, while the boys were at preschool, Richard attended his first therapy session. The office was in a discreet building in downtown Boston, not far from his former corporate headquarters. "What brings you here, Mr. Wilson?" the therapist asked after they settled into comfortable chairs. "I need help," Richard admitted. "I've made mistakes with my children, with their mother. I don't want to continue those patterns." "That's a good place to start," the therapist nodded. "Tell me about your own childhood." "My parents were absent, physically present sometimes, but emotionally distant. My father built his business empire and expected me to do the same." "And did you?" Richard nodded. "I became exactly what he wanted. Successful, powerful, rich, and just as emotionally unavailable." By the end of January, the co-parenting routine had found its rhythm. The triplets spent 3 days with Maya, then 3 days with Richard, with both parents present for transitions. The boys moved between households as a unit, never separated. Eleanor split her time between both homes, providing consistency for the triplets. She had her own room at Richard's house and a dedicated space at Maya's apartment where she could rest during long days. One snowy afternoon, the Boston Magazine journalist arrived at Richard's house for their scheduled interview. Richard had prepared carefully with Maya's agreement. "Thank you for meeting me here instead of at your office," the journalist said, looking around the modest living room with obvious curiosity. "This is where I spend most of my time now," Richard explained, offering her tea. "That's one of the things I want to discuss," she nodded, taking out her recorder. "Your dramatic lifestyle change." The interview lasted 2 hours, covering everything from the Christmas Eve revelation to Richard's new approach to work and family. "Some people are calling this a midlife crisis," the journalist noted. "Stepping back from your CEO position, moving from Beacon Hill to Cambridge, the divorce." Richard smiled slightly. "I prefer to think of it as a midlife awakening. I discovered what actually matters." As January came to a close, the Boston Magazine issue hit newsstands with Richard and the triplets on the cover. The photo showed all four building a snowman together with the headline, "Family Over Fortune. The Wilson Triplets Change Everything." Olivia, sitting in her Four Seasons suite, threw the magazine across the room in disgust. She immediately called her lawyer. "Have you seen this?" she demanded. "He's playing the devoted father role, making me look like the villain." "We need to respond." "Olivia, we've reached a very generous settlement," her lawyer reminded her. "The agreement includes a non-disparagement clause. You can't publicly criticize him." "I'm not signing yet," Olivia declared. "I want more, and I know just how to get it." She hung up and made another call, this time to a tabloid reporter who had been pursuing her for comments. "I'm ready to tell my side of the story," she said coldly, "about the man who lied to me throughout our marriage and the woman who destroyed it." 2 days after Olivia's call to the tabloid reporter, Richard's lawyer contacted him urgently. "We have a problem," the lawyer said over the phone. "Olivia gave an interview to the City Insider. They're running a story tomorrow with her version of events." Richard sighed, watching through the window as the triplets built a snow fort in the backyard. "What's she saying?" "That you knew about the other 2 children all along. That you and Maya planned this whole thing to humiliate her." "That's ridiculous," Richard said. "No one would believe that." "People believe what they want to believe," the lawyer replied, "especially when it comes from someone as photogenic as Olivia." The tabloid story appeared the next day, but its impact was smaller than Olivia had hoped. The public had already embraced the heartwarming narrative of the reunited triplets, and few were interested in the bitter ex-wife's perspective. By March, the snow in Boston began to melt, revealing the first signs of spring. The triplets settled into a comfortable routine between their 2 homes, and both Richard and Maya adjusted to their new co-parenting arrangement. One sunny Saturday, Richard sat with Maya on a park bench while the triplets played on the swings nearby. Eleanor had the weekend off, her first break since Christmas. "Their birthday is next month," Maya mentioned, watching the boys. "April 15th. Richard nodded. 4 years old. "I was thinking we could have a joint celebration. Something simple that's about them, not about us or appearances." "That would be nice," Maya agreed. "Maybe at the community park?" "They love the playground there." "Perfect," Richard smiled. "No fancy party planners, no photographers, no social climbers, just family and their friends from preschool." In the weeks that followed, Richard and Maya planned the birthday party together. It was a new experience for Richard, who had previously left such matters to Olivia or professional event planners. He found himself enjoying the simple tasks, ordering a cake, buying paper plates with dinosaur designs, helping the boys create handmade invitations for their preschool friends. The morning of April 15th dawned clear and mild. Maya arrived at Richard's house early with bags of decorations. "The park pavilion is reserved for 11 o'clock, she said, sorting through balloons and streamers. "I thought we could go early to set up." Richard nodded. "The cake is being delivered at noon. I got 1 large cake with all their names instead of 3 separate ones." "Good thinking," Maya smiled. "They'd insist on sharing anyway." Upstairs, the triplets were still asleep in their room. Since moving to the new house, Richard had arranged their bedroom with 3 beds, but often found them all squeezed into one by morning. Their need to be close to each other remained strong even after months together. By 10:30, the park pavilion was decorated with colorful streamers and balloons. A banner reading, "Happy 4th Birthday, Leo, Noah, and Eli," hung across the front. Simple folding tables held paper plates, cups, and party hats. The triplets arrived with Eleanor, who had helped them dress in matching outfits, their choice, not the adults. They immediately ran to the playground, where several of their preschool friends were already waiting. "They look so happy," Richard said, watching the boys climb on the play structure. "They are happy," Maya replied. "That's all I ever wanted for them." Parents from the preschool approached Richard and Maya cautiously at first. Many had read about the Wilson triplets story but weren't sure how to address it. Gradually, as the party progressed, the adults relaxed. Richard found himself chatting with other fathers about ordinary things: children's sleeping habits, the best local pediatricians, preschool politics. At noon, the cake arrived. A large sheet cake with 3 identical toy cars on top, one for each boy. The triplets gathered around, their faces glowing with excitement. "Make a wish," Maya told them as she lit the candles. The boys closed their eyes tightly for a moment, then blew out the candles together. Everyone clapped and cheered. As Richard began cutting the cake, a sleek black car pulled up to the park entrance. Olivia stepped out, wearing large sunglasses and a designer outfit that looked completely out of place at the casual park setting. She carried 3 identically wrapped large presents, each with expensive gold ribbon. "Oh no," Maya whispered, noticing her first. Richard looked up from the cake. "Stay here with the boys. I'll handle this." He walked across the grass to intercept Olivia before she reached the party area. Up close, he could see she'd brought a photographer who was discreetly staying by the car. "Olivia," Richard said firmly, "this is a private family event." "I'm still legally your wife," she replied coolly. "And I brought gifts for the boys." "The divorce will be final next week," Richard reminded her. "And this isn't the place for this." Olivia removed her sunglasses, revealing perfectly made-up eyes. "I simply want to wish the children a happy birthday. Is that so terrible?" Before Richard could answer, the triplets noticed the newcomer. "Who's that lady?" Noah asked Maya, pointing at Olivia. "That's Daddy's wife," Maya explained gently. "You remember Miss Olivia, don't you?" The triplets looked at Olivia with identical expressions of mild curiosity, but no recognition. Leo, who had lived with her for years, simply shrugged and returned to his cake. Olivia's face tightened as she realized the boys barely remembered her. She thrust the presents toward Richard. "These are from me. Designer outfits from Paris. Much nicer than what they're wearing now." "Thank you," Richard said, taking the gifts. "But we're keeping things simple today." Olivia glanced around at the modest party, the paper plates, the homemade decorations, the other ordinary families watching the scene unfold. "This is what you left me for?" she asked quietly. "Paper hats and a public park? You used to host galas that people talked about for months." Richard looked back at the triplets, who were now smearing cake on each other's faces and laughing hysterically. "I left because I finally found something real," he said simply. "Goodbye, Olivia." She stared at him for a moment, then replaced her sunglasses and walked back to her car, waving off the photographer who had been hoping for dramatic photos. The party continued as if nothing had happened. The triplets opened their presents, played games with their friends, and ran around the playground until they were exhausted. As the celebration wound down, Eleanor approached Richard and Maya while the boys were playing a final game of tag with their remaining friends. "I wanted to speak with you both," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I've loved caring for the boys, but I'll be 70 next year. I think it's time for me to consider retirement." Richard nodded, though the news saddened him. "We understand, Eleanor. You've been incredible through all of this change." "Not immediately," Eleanor clarified. "Perhaps by the end of the year. That would give you time to find new arrangements." "We'll miss you terribly," Maya said, squeezing Eleanor's hand. "The boys adore you." As the sun began to set, the last guests departed. The triplets, tired from a day of excitement, sat together on a park bench, sharing one last cookie. "Did you boys have a good birthday?" Richard asked, sitting beside them. "Best birthday ever!" they chorused. "Did you like having one party together?" Maya asked. Noah nodded enthusiastically. "We get to be together all the time now." "No more letters," Eli added. "We can just talk for real." "And we have 2 houses," Leo finished proudly. Later that evening, after the triplets had been bathed and put to bed at Maya's apartment, Richard and Maya sat at her small kitchen table, planning the summer ahead. "I was thinking about day camp at the community center," Maya suggested. "They have a good program for 4-year-olds. Richard nodded. "That sounds perfect. And maybe a week at the beach in August? I rented a house on Cape Cod." "The boys would love that," Maya agreed, making notes in her planner. As they continued discussing options for the triplets' summer, Richard realized how completely his priorities had shifted. 6 months ago, he would have been planning business acquisitions and corporate strategies. Now he was researching the best children's sunscreen and planning family picnics. "I received the final paperwork from Wilson Tech today," Richard mentioned. "The new CEO is doing well. The company's stock has actually gone up since I stepped back." "Are you surprised?" Maya asked. "A little," Richard admitted. "I always thought they needed me to succeed." Turns out I needed to step back to succeed at what really matters. "And how's your therapy going?" Maya asked gently. "Good. Hard sometimes, but good. I'm learning about where my need for control comes from, how my father's expectations shaped me." Maya smiled. "I'm proud of you, Richard. The boys are lucky to have you as their father." "The man I was at Christmas wouldn't deserve that compliment," Richard said honestly. "I'm still learning." As Richard drove home through the quiet Cambridge streets that evening, he thought about how much had changed since Christmas Eve. The mansion was gone. His marriage was over. His role at the company was reduced. Yet he felt richer now than he ever had before. He passed the small park where they had celebrated the triplets' birthday. The sight of the playground made him smile, remembering their laughter. One revelation on Christmas had shattered his perfect facade, but gave him something he never knew he needed: a chance to be a real father, not just a provider. At home, Richard walked through the quiet rooms, checking that doors were locked and lights were off. In his bedroom, he paused by the dresser where a new photo stood in a simple frame. All three boys with cake-smeared faces, arms around each other, grinning widely at the camera. This was his legacy now. Not a company, not a mansion, not a perfect image, just three identical boys who looked at the world with wonder and at each other with unconditional love. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.